This is Heather, right? Yes. Heather.
Yeah.
A through Z.
How about S?
I don't think I heard you. Did you say T?
Yep. You got it.
In big news, as of today, Donald J. Trump is a convicted felon.
Excellent. I mean, oh, interesting.
I mean, what that changes, who knows? Probably not a damn thing. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a thing for now. It could also be changed at any point in time, too, where he could have it, you know, his appeal won or the case thrown out or whatever, and he's no longer a convicted felon. But, you know, as of this moment, he is a convicted felon.
What was it like? 34 counts or something like that? Like, what was the,
Yeah, he was convicted on 34 counts of financial fraud, something like that. So that's a thing. I also found out today, this is super interesting. In August, there's a Ronald Reagan biopic coming out. With Jastin, it's your boy too. It's your boy Dennis Quaid.
Oh, D. Quaid.
D. Quaid is playing Ronald Reagan.
They're going to talk about what a hero he was to America.
Yeah.
America.
What if it just throws you off and it just talks about how terrible he was or something?
Oh, no. I watched the trailer today.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know if anybody else knows this, but there is a rumor going around that back in the day, Nancy Reagan, before she was Nancy Reagan, was more or less known in Hollywood as being the throat goat. And by that, apparently she used to just suck all the dicks in Hollywood. And apparently she was super good at it. And all I'll say is after watching that trailer, that movie is doing a damn good Nancy Reagan impression to Ronald Reagan. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I know I more than most people here, even though there's only three of us, but I know I'm the one that has the stance of like, oh, I don't like watching biopics for this reason or that reason, or, you know, I don't like it when they do biopics of garbage people. I'm not going to lie. I so want to watch this fucking movie. Just because I want to talk about all of the fucking lies that this movie is. But I don't know. I'm slightly intrigued by it. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe something broke in me finally.
We'll see. Maybe.
But yes, super intrigued.
Yeah. I don't know, Sterling. You might see something that makes you explode.
Probably. It might fucking kill me. Which would just be another reason to hate Ronald Reagan. But I don't know. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued. But yeah, that's something to look forward to in August. If you don't have any plans in August, Ronald Reagan biopic comes out.
Which you probably never thought you'd be just outwardly promoting like that.
I don't know. I mean, as a member of the Satanic Temple, I am kind of for satanic propaganda. So I think it actually makes sense that I'm promoting this movie.
Sure. Yeah, it tracks.
Because if anybody is a king in fucking hell, it is Ronald fucking Reagan.
Well put.
Just saying. I mean, that guy had a special chair for him in that fucking place. I don't know. Oh, yes. Another big thing. This is also not movie related, but I think it's really something cool to talk about real quick. Major League Baseball decided to finally integrate the Negro League statistics into their official statistics.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And it's also about damn time.
Yeah. That's tight.
So a lot of people are mad now, of course, because a player by the name of Josh Gibson is now like statistically better than a lot of people. It is now the leader in several categories of all-time baseball records because they finally did this.
Nice.
Past Ty Cobb, past Babe Ruth, past a lot of people. It is now considered the greatest hitter in Major League Baseball history because of this. So many people are mad. So many people. And I loved the argument too, because so many people are like, well, but who is he playing against really? Yeah, you do understand that that's the same argument people make against Babe Ruth, right? Like, who the fuck was he playing against? Because there was a guy in another league that just was not allowed to play with him because, racism, that for all intent and purposes is a better hitter, is a better baseball player. So if you're going to have that energy for Josh Gibson, have that energy for both Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth. And also Ty Cobb was a horrible, horrendous racist. So,
yep, he sure was.
But yeah, let's just keep that in mind, people. But also, yeah, it's about damn time. It really is. Like, it took them so long to finally do what they should have done. They had incorporated statistics from other leagues that were not considered as prestigious, that were older. And it's just they finally got around to it. It's fucking ridiculous. But yeah, that's just a really cool story. I'm really glad that finally happened. You guys got any news? You guys got anything else?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think if I heard anything else this week. No, I got nothing.
All right. Well, quick breezy news segment. Intro music.
Somebody will listen to me.
Nobody knows anything but you.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I'm joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight, we're going to talk about what we liked, didn't like, and everything in between with Furiosa, a Mad Max story. Isn't that, I think, the full title for it? Something like that.
Yeah, Mad Max Saga.
Yes.
Saga, yeah.
Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. We will go spoiler-free recommendations and scores and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description to allow you to jump around if you so require. And with all that, Heather, what are your spoiler-free thoughts about Furiosa?
Yeah, I was looking forward to this movie. You know, I was excited because I think Fury Road was amazing. And then hearing who they were casting in this movie, I was excited for it. And I would say for the most part, it doesn't really disappoint in that way. It's a good movie. I think it's a really good, really well-made movie. It's not, and it's going to be hard to not do the comparison because it's just, you know, how it works, but it's not Fury Road, but Fury Road is just kind of, in a way, that's kind of on a whole different level of any of the Mad Max movies, in my opinion. But this is, you know, it's a good entry into this world. I'm not mad at it. I think the action is really good. I think the cinematography is fantastic, which I expected, especially based off of Fury Road. I think the acting is obviously really, really good. Also, I did not realize until earlier this week that the guy who plays Immortan Joe is the same guy who played like a different character in this. The kind of like the guy with like the crazy hair that initially went into Furiosa's town and got people. It's the same person, which is kind of cool. I know we'll get into all that, but that was impressive to me. That was the same guy. Anya Taylor-Joy was obviously excellent. I think she was a really good younger version of the Charlize Theron character. I thought that was a really good match to do. And yeah, I think there's some characters that they had that really surprised me as far as how enjoyable they were in the movie. And I think that if I had to say a complaint about the movie, I do think that it maybe took a little bit too long to start into the revenge plot story that I was expecting from this movie based off of knowing what this movie is. I think it took a little longer to get there than I would have liked, but I did think that the story they're telling throughout, the whole backstory of Furiosa, everything going on there, these worlds that we're introduced to or that we're seeing more of, I think it's an interesting story throughout. And I do love seeing just the different worlds and places that these people are from and just how distinctly different they are. I think they do a really good job at that as well. But yeah, it's got a lot of really cool moments in it. Some things about it that I kind of wish were done a little differently or taken a different direction, but I would say it's definitely a solid film for the most part. It's great action. It follows I guess I would say it follows suit of Fury Road. Like it's got that same quality of shots that they do, that same quality of just gritty craziness going on. And it was nice to kind of revisit this world, even though we're revisiting it much, much later. But yeah, I thought it was really good.
Jastin, what about you?
Yeah, I too think that it's that it's a pretty good film. I think that there are certain things that Miller did in this that sort of expand your knowledge of what is going on in Mad Max. It's just as far as the environment, how some of these places are set up. It was interesting finding out that you've got all these little places where people harbor materials that are needed. And you can see how kind of like how these different places are monetizing and capitalizing off of whatever good or service they can provide. And that's sort of how these places are set up, on down to a place just being called Bullet. What was it, like Bullet Land, or like
Bullet Farm?
Bullet Farm.
Yeah, Bullet Farm, or like, you know, so that was interesting, you know, just seeing the expansion of that idea, because you kind of figured that's what was happening, but you know, seeing different environments kind of solidifies that idea. And some of that too was a little bit in like the older Mad Max movies as well, but this one really sort of, you're starting to visually realize the idea. So I kind of like that. I just like the expansion of the environment. And you know, when you look at this origin story about Furiosa, I think that honestly, everything about it makes Fury Road better, because now you understand like more about who Furiosa is. You understand why she's a badass, and you understand the hard road that she took to be that way. And even though you got bits and pieces and of that exposited to you in Fury Road, this helps to really give you like that whole perspective of the character. So I do think that this, as a complementary piece to Fury Road, does make Fury Road better. But unfortunately, Fury Road was already like a damn near perfect movie. So yes, this helps to make that movie better. But unfortunately, this movie was up against the daunting task of following up that. And unfortunately, it is not better than Fury Road. It's a nice compliment to Fury Road. It helps. I'm glad that this movie came out. Glad I watched it. It is very good. But I think Fury Road, that script was just a little bit tighter than this one. I think it has a lot less lull, because Fury Road was just one big chase, basically. Away from where we started, then we go back to where we started, and that's sort of where the movie ends. We kind of just do this thing in Fury Road. This one, a little bit different. You're telling an origin story, so you're in a lot of different locations. You're in a lot of different places. You're having to explain characters that we haven't met and things like that. So it's a different task entirely, and because of that, I don't think that the pacing is as tight or as intense as Fury Road. And that's probably where it's not going to be as good. I think just overall, it's not as tight of a script. But everything that you expect from a Mad Max movie is here. You get the awesome chases, you get the car battles and the amazing stunts, and you get all the vibrant costumes and sort of this goth S&M, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, hair metal inspired costumes and stuff. You know, you get all of that stuff. I don't know, maybe demon inspired. I mean, is some of that shit demonic, Sterling? You would know. Is there demonic shit in them?
Not really. It's just post-apocalyptic.
Really? So it's just, okay. So you would just call it post-apocalyptic.
I mean, you could maybe argue something with Immortum Joe, but I don't think it's demonic as much as there is a cult-like quality to what Dementis is doing. You know, he comes across as a cult leader, you know, that type of thing. But I wouldn't really say
I'm just
demonic.
talking about look and costumes and stuff like that.
Like that. That's just poking.
You don't think any of that stuff, because isn't there somebody that had horns, or they I don't know, they wear red stuff. They sometimes have
lots of things have horns, Jastin.
And nobody had horns?
No, but I'm just saying lots of things have horns. That doesn't necessarily make it demonic in nature. They could be just channeling their inner wildebeest.
I think one of
I guess it
the
could.
vehicles or motorcycles or something had horns on it to use. I think.
Maybe that's where I'm getting that from. I don't know. Well, anyway, it's all dark shit. Sometimes I just can't put it. I just say it's all the same, and maybe I should stop doing that. But anyway, the dark shit inspired costumes and look and the kind of like maniac crazy way that some of these characters act and some of these eccentric mannerisms and stuff, like the stuff that we come to expect from Mad Max, all of that stuff is in here. But at the heart of it, is it Anna Taylor-Joy or Anya Taylor-Joy?
I thought it was Anya.
I thought it was too, and then I heard some kind of interview where it was Anya. So I don't know.
Okay.
She said
So
if
Anya Taylor-Joy.
if she said that, then yeah, I guess we can listen to her about her name.
Yeah, I guess if she said it, it's true. So Anya. Well, at the heart of it, it's her story, and I think that she does well. And it's not even really like that that she says a lot in this movie. I don't really even think she has a lot of lines in this movie, but Anya can do a lot of acting with her eyes. I mean, like, she's definitely one of those people that can just do a lot of acting with a lot of the stories with her eyes. Her and Cillian Murphy would just have the most epic eye off when it comes to acting and stuff like that. But she's very good with her eyes, man. And I think a lot of this rides on that. There are a lot of times where she's tasked with, she can't speak, and she's tasked with just a gaze or a look or something like that, or she can't really say what she wants to say. And I mean, all of that comes across with her acting, all of it, even in the intense scenes and where we're driving. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about too. Like, there are a lot of scenes, especially like with these Mad Max movies, where essentially a person is driving. And when you're driving and it's like an action sequence, there's not really a lot you can do, with your body. You're in a constricted area. You're a driver. You're supposed to be driving. So everything, and none of this is actually happening. So of course, 100% of it is like acting too. But you're in I feel like that would be a tough place to try to display a lot of intensity or reacting to this tanker being damaged and to have to make the right face, to have to make the right reaction, to be less worried when something crashes into it, or to be more worried when a couple of tires are blown out. I feel like there's a lot that you have to do in a very constricted area, and it's very stationary, and everything is about how you're looking, what you do with your eyes, what you do with your head jerks and nods and all of that kind of stuff. And man, she really nails that in this. And the other actor, who is the actor that plays her, sort of was like her mentor in this? Man, I should have looked at
the guy she's riding with.
Yes.
Jack, Praetorian Jack. Tom Burke.
Yes. Okay. Him. He was very good too at that. He was very good too. Like, so my hat's off to them for that, because that feels like something that might be very difficult to do. But man, they just nail it in those scenes every time. And if I'm gonna say that, I'll even go back and say Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron did a badass job doing that same shit. Because they all had to do that in these movies, and they do the driver imperil action scenes like super well. Because I just don't feel like you have a lot to work with when you do those scenes. But yeah, this is Anya's vehicle, and she really does kill it, man. I mean, she does everything she needs to do. She is a believable young Furiosa. She was the right casting for it. And sometimes even when she talked, she sounded like her. Now, I don't know if that was them just using Charlize's voice, and maybe that's why, or if it was her altering her voice to sound that way. But there were times where she sounded just like Charlize, and I went, damn, like she sounds exactly like Charlize sounded as Furiosa. So, I mean, whether that was acting or that could have been effects, I guess. But either way, Taylor-Joy did super well. So, yeah. And Chris Hemsworth, the last thing I'll say is he was good here too. Interestingly enough, Dementis wears Thor colors. So I couldn't help but sometimes see Thor when I would look at him. You know, he kind of had a red cape thing, and the blues and the yellows that he had on, it kind of, he didn't look, obviously it wasn't Thor, and he didn't act like Thor or anything like that. But sometimes I couldn't help but look at him and that color palette being the same and be like, man, he's kind of about to be a Thor right now. But still, but none of this, but trust me, this is not Thor. Like, he did a really good job in this role. And I get what you're saying, Sterling, about he kind of came off as a cult leader. But what I liked about Chris Hemsworth's performance in it is that he almost played this character like this person trying to be convincing and sincere, but you could always tell beneath the surface there was some bullshit. And I think he was just very good at that. Like, he was very good at, like, this person. There were times where it was just like, okay, he's full of shit. Then there was times where it was like, damn, he really believes his own bullshit. But I don't know. Chris Hemsworth did a good job at that. My only thing is that I do think maybe I would have went maybe a tad more darker with him at certain points. I think there were opportunities to flip a switch, and we didn't quite. I think we sort of kept him at this one tone. And I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like there were moments where maybe I would have went a bit darker, a bit more merciless with him. And I think the point would have come across even stronger. But, you know, that's something we can debate. But he was every bit the villain he needed to be for this. Overall, I liked his performance and him. And there are some like really good, there's a really great scene at the end, I think, with him and Anya. That was just, I really thought that was awesome towards the end. So yeah, overall, it was entertaining. I thought it was very good. It's definitely worthy of being the next film in the Mad Max series. And I think it was a strong, and you know, it's unfortunate that not many people saw this in the movie theater, but I think if anything's a theater movie, it was this one, man. Like the sounds and the roaring of the engines and the explosions and the yelling and the intensity, like this is a movie you want to watch in a movie theater. So, you know, it's unfortunate that it didn't make the money they thought it was going to make over the holiday weekend. But, you know, and that's sad because more people should watch this in the movie theater. I think this is the kind of movie experience that you sign up for. You know, all the sights and sounds and the epicness. It had an epicness feel to it that I think was worthy of seeing in the movie theater.
I mean, I, for the most part, agree with what you guys have said. I mean, it's a pretty well-acted movie. It's got some really good action set pieces in it. It kind of just, you know, adds to the lore that is the Mad Max franchise. I agree with you on that last thing you said too, Jastin. You know, this is one of those movies that, you know, you need to see in theaters. I agree with that. You know, ultimately though, my issues with this movie kind of come into, it's too little too late, though. This is 5 years after, Fury Road. And it's really hard to kind of recapture that hype. It's kind of the same issue I have with Black Widow. You're giving me a movie that's set, between some other movies, and, we already know the fate of this character and all this other shit. And you want to go, hey, yeah, do you want to know how you get to the part where this character that you just got introduced to, but we haven't talked about in 5 years? Yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, it's a fantastic character, but it's not an established character, really. She's been in one movie. And then you ignore her for 5 years and then go, hey, but maybe care about her. It's a slightly tough ask. But I mean, for the most part, this movie's fine. I don't, like I said, I agree with Jastin. It deserves to be watched in the movie theater. It's a big, explodey action movie. It's, to me, why movie theaters were built. I don't know what the fuck people were doing in movie theaters watching shit like Gone with the Wind. God, that was boring as fuck. You're just watching people talk for a bunch of hours? Like, in a movie theater? Like, that seems like boring as fuck. This is why movie theaters exist. This is why you get those big, nice 4K or those Dolby Digital surround sound and the digital fucking projectors and all that shit. It's for movies like this. But also, maybe release this movie 3 years ago instead. Did you try that? Like, it just, it's fine for people like us. It might be fine for people like you out there, Cinefans. You know who this is not going to be for? Or why you shouldn't have waited 5 years? For the motherfucker that's going to come back in 8 months from now, listen to this episode because they finally watched Furiosa. Because they're scrolling through Max and they go, oh, I guess let's watch this. The kids are asleep. Let's watch this movie. Those are the people that you make this movie 3 years ago for. Because maybe they didn't have that kid 3 years ago. Maybe they were just still all hyped up from Fury Road 3 years ago. Maybe you could have, done more with it 3 years ago. It's just slightly deflated because of that. And it does a big thing, a very big thing that some prequels do that I absolutely hate with a passion. But we'll get into that in spoilers. Recommendations and scores?
Yep.
Recommendations and score.
Jastin, go.
Yeah, I recommend it. And we all said it, please go see it in theaters. And I get what Sterling's talking about. The gap is unfortunate because it is hard to hold interest in in someone, especially a new character. And then that character is casted by somebody else. So it's not even like, so you got to think about all that. Like, you just got introduced to this character in one movie 5 years ago. But in this movie, a different actress is playing the character than the one you saw 5 years ago. So now you're having to associate new actors and the actors that were in that movie 5 years ago are not in this one. So, yeah, I can see how you took a 5-year gap and basically you are asking the audience to keep that excitement and that investment in a character, in the character because the actors and the stuff that you saw 5 years ago is not going to be in this one. So, yeah, I guess that is a tough ask. You know, it's not the same as 5 years later, Spider-Man comes out. Well, I mean, it's fucking Spider-Man, you know?
But there's the difference also between sequels and prequels. If this was a sequel movie, it might have stood a better chance. This is a prequel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a prequel with different. Yeah. If this was, you know, Mad Max Fury Highway, and it was like, oh man, Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron about to just, the whole thing takes place on a highway, and it is just one big highway chase, and it doesn't end until we get to the end of this fucking highway. And on the highway, there's a cliff, and who's going to fucking go over the cliff or something like that? Some crazy shit. Yeah, we probably would have had some more people in there watching this. I think, yeah, you probably would have. And if they decide to do another movie like Max and Furiosa go to Nitro World or some shit, you know, it might do better than this one. It just might. It just might.
You know what sucks? You know what George Miller's next idea is, though?
What?
The story of how Mad Max ends up leading to Fury Road.
Oh, damn. So he's going to go back and do Max, huh?
Yeah. It's the Max prequel to the same fucking movie. Fuck off, George Miller. Do another fucking movie. Like, move on. Like,
I know, like, Mad Max, we already know who Mad Max is, though. Mad Max already got. He's mad and he's Max.
Do you need to know what happens between the third Mad Max movie and what led to Fury Road? Do you really need to know that? Like, do you need to know what happened the week before Fury Road, really?
Yeah. Do I need to know what happens just before he's standing along that mountainside? Like, before those nomads or whatever start chasing him? I don't need to know that. I'd rather, let's go forward and do something with him and Furiosa.
Let's find out what happens a week after Fury Road, not the week before.
Let's find out what happens then. So yeah, I don't know why he wants to keep going back like that. I mean, I'm sure the movie will be great,
think he's
but
scared.
Again, you're asking, you know, it's a tough ask. It's a tough ask. And then who's going to play him? You know, who's going to play? Because is it going to be Tom Hardy this time?
If it's just the week before, then sure, you know. But if they want to go literally from the end of the third Mad Max to this or whatever, or some other part of the time, saying, yeah, you're right. You might have to get someone else.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know about that decision, but
I legit do think he's scared though. Because while the Mad Max movies kind of have a cult following and all this other stuff, Fury Road was nominated for Best Fucking Picture.
Yeah.
I think he's scared to do a follow-up to that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was too good. Maybe it was too good. He just can't, and he doesn't know if he can top that. Maybe it was just too good, man. Maybe so. And it came out at the right time because it followed Beyond Thunderdome, you know. And I love you, Tina Turner, but why the hell were we in a Thunderdome and not on the road? But anyway, I went back and watched them, and boy, I was sitting there going, damn, we didn't get on the road to the end of this shit.
Jastin, I
thought this was Mad Max.
I told you. You were like, man, I'm going to rewatch all of them. And I told you, I go, do you really need to? I was like, just watch Fury Road. And you were like, no, I got to watch them all. They were good. I'm like, just watch Fury Road.
Man, I'm like, should I go into this or not? You know what? We had a short news section. Fuck it. Okay. Like my problem was I probably didn't appreciate that warning because I saw the original 3 out of order. The first one I saw was Thunderdome. And, you know, my mom, you know, because my mom saw it because of Tina Turner. And see, that's the thing. That's why maybe her being in it was good because it would bring, you know, she brought new eyes to Mad Max. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Mad Max is a high octane white dude driving around and riding around motorcycle and shit like that. You know, that's when I think about Mad Max, I don't think black women, you know? I don't really think that's the audience that's coming to watch Mad Max.
I have the exact opposite thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
yes.
That's all I think about.
That's all. That is all who came to watch it. So that's my introduction to Mad Max was Beyond Thunderdome. And as a movie, is it that bad of a movie? I mean, not if it's the first one you see, when you have no other Mad Maxes to compare it to, not really. It's pretty straightforward.
It's a silly little 80s
cliche.
movie.
Yeah, it's a typical 80s movie. And it's hella cliche where man, you know, gets lost and winds up saved by natives, and then they can't understand each other, but then they come to an understanding because they have a common enemy, and man helps natives to a better place or a better situation or whatever. So it's got all that, it's got all that cliche stuff. But so, yeah, but at the time I was like, yeah, that was all right. And I think that's why in my head somewhere, I was like, I don't remember thinking Thunderdome was that bad. But boy, when you watch Mad Max, the Road Warrior, and then Beyond Thunderdome all together, yeah, Thunderdome just makes you mad. Because they just completely went away from the identity to Mad Max. And now, when I think about Fury Road, I can maybe understand why Miller approached that with such like enthusiasm and ambition, and most of it takes place we're on wheels and stuff like that. I think he was just kind of determined to get back to the identity of what Mad Max is supposed to be. That's probably another reason why that movie was so damn good. But anyway, I thought that was worth saying. Because of course everybody wanted to know about Beyond Thunderdome on this shit. But yeah, I recommend it. It's good, man. You should go see it. It's a good movie experience. I don't know. What did I give Mad Max Fury Road? Like a 99 or something? I don't know. It probably got like a 98 or a 99 from me. So I would say, and I do think this is really good. I don't think this is weak. I don't think it's a C. I mean, it's like, is it 20 points lower than Fury Road? I don't think it's that low much. Is it that much worse than Fury Road? I don't think so. So I don't know. Maybe like upper 80s. I don't know if it's a 90 though. I don't know if I can give it an A per se.
I mean, even that much less, that's just saying how good of a movie Fury Road is. Because, yeah, I mean, 20 points less being like an 89 or whatever you said, that's not bad,
Yeah. If I gave it a 98, I don't think, and then if I go 20 lower than that, that's a 78. And I don't think that's fair to the film. The film's better than that. I'll give it 10 more than that. So we'll go 88. We'll go 88. Man, I had one that I wrote down. What did I write down? I had like a thing I was going to reference for this. I didn't write it down. Damn it. I thought I wrote it down. Sorry, guys. Don't you just love how I'm just making us hang in my section? We'll give it 88. I do not. 88. Trees growing on your special place out of 100.
I was like, where is he going with trees? It's just 88 trees. I was like, okay. I mean, okay. Heather, what about you?
Also, correction, I meant to say, even if you gave it 10 points lower, that's what I meant, not 20 points. So thank you for saying what you did, because I realized I meant 10 and I said 20. Anyways, I do agree with you guys about it. Too little, too late. More just, it lost its momentum being so much later than Fury Road, because, even when they first announced that they were going to do a Furiosa origin story and all of that stuff, I remember being like, okay, that'll be cool. She's a really good character. And I remember at one point hearing that Anya Taylor-Joy was being cast in it. And I was like, cool. And then not hearing anything else about it for so long, I was just like, oh, that is a movie that they were going to do, huh? That's just kind of the mindset that I was at the time that they started actually talking about this movie coming out. So I understand what you mean by that. But yeah, I do recommend it. I also think for sure watching it in theaters would be a great idea. It is a good movie. I think it has some interesting characters, and I think they have really good dynamics. And I think the story that we get of Furiosa fits with what we see in the first movie that she's in. So I think that they do a good job of making you feel like, oh yeah, this makes sense for her character. This makes sense for her journey. So I appreciate that they did that part well, in my opinion. And I mean, Dementis, I think, was a really good character. And I mean, I think in some ways, not to say that Chris Hemsworth was like outperforming Anya Taylor-Joy, but I think his character was more interesting in points just because he was so unhinged. And I get what you mean about maybe him, like taking him a little bit darker would be a good idea, but also just because he's so unhinged and he is that cult leader type vibe to him, the way that they did him, I think made sense. And I think that he was done in a really good way. And because he was just so dynamic of a character on his own, I think some of his scenes stuck with me more because he also, talks more than Furiosa in general. So she was great at the acting for sure. And it also makes sense, again, for her character to not be much with the words, because that tracks. But just because of the fact that Chris Hemsworth as Dementis had to do so much more to make his character what it was supposed to be, he stood out a lot to me in a lot of these scenes, even particularly that scene at the end that you were talking about, Jastin, that I know we're going to get to. But yeah, I think that the world that they've created, the characters really fit well within the worlds that we get in this movie, the wasteland worlds that come together, and the whole thing about like the wasteland war that they're doing. And it's a really intriguing story, and it's a fun ride to see where it goes. I agree. I think that Jack was a great character. I was not expecting him as a character. I don't remember seeing him in the trailers at all. So it was kind of like a bonus character that I was like, okay, they brought in a good character that I wasn't even expecting in this movie, but he added a lot, like something about what he did with that movie. And then his back and forth with Furiosa, like I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good addition to the film. But all that to say, yeah, I do recommend it. I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's a worthy entry into this world, but still definitely not Fury Road, because as Jastin said, that is a nearly perfect film. I mean, that film is excellent. Excellent film. Excellent action film. But yeah, I'll give this movie, I'm going to go 85. Teddy bears worn as different accessories out of 100.
You said 85?
Yes.
Yeah, I recommend it. I mean, it's pretty good. That guy you were talking about, with what's his name, Pilotus Jack or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you like that character, why both of you like that character, and it makes complete sense. That character is Mad Max. I mean, that's what that character is. That he's Mad Max. I know he's not actually Max, but the character's Mad Max.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so that's kind of why you like that character, is because, you know, it feels very familiar in this world because, you know, you've seen 4 other movies with him, even though he's brand new. I mean, for the most part, I agree with you guys. You know, I just think it being so far removed from Fury Road, I guess it bothers me more than it bothers you guys. And, you know, like I said, this one other big thing that to me is just very grating, but that prequels do. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I think it's real funny though, Jastin, because you were like, oh man, 78. And you were like, I can't give it a 78. That's, you know, no, that's exactly what I was going to give it. It was a 78. I just thought it was so funny that you landed on my score and went, nah, impossible. And then jumped up 10 points. When, yeah, that's just exactly where I was. I was like, yeah, 78. So yeah, I give it a 78. Mad Max is standing on a cliff watching Furiosa walk in the desert. Out of 100. Because yes, that's who that character was. That's Mad Max standing there watching her bleed as she walks in the desert. That puts the official Cinescore for this movie as an 84. Spoilers?
Yep.
Spoilers.
All right, I have to start with it. I have to talk about my thing. I have a big problem with prequels introducing things that are not in later movies. So I know that Furiosa is the only movie after this one, technically, canonically speaking, but why the fuck is there like flying bad guys in this movie and there's no flying in later? That really bugs me. They've got like whole flying apparatuses. They've got a guy that's the Octobos and he's got like this fucking flying squid fuck of a thing. And they're doing all kinds of flying mechanics and all this other shit. And that just disappears like 10 years later in Fury Road. That really bothers me when they do shit like that.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, I get that they're doing it because they have to add something. They have to add something to it to make it interesting, to make, you know, these really exciting and great set pieces. I totally get that. But don't add shit that's super cool that just never shows up again. Like, come on, if we saw flying fucks in Fury Road, like chasing down totally would be fine with it and all this other stuff. But you're telling me that gigantic chase that is the entirety of the third act of Fury Road, if you had flying fucks, you're not busting them out in that?
Yeah.
It really bugs me when that happens. And like I said, I get the impulse. I get why. But that's also why sometimes you have to restrain yourself. You know, that's like going and doing a Civil War movie and throwing in a fucking laser gun. And just being like, and then they forgot how to use laser guns for the next 200 years. Like, it's just weird. Like, so like, it's shit like that weirdly bothers me with that stuff. You know, because it just really adds this weird divide. You know, and I know sometimes they try to explain that away in other movies, like in other properties where they're like, oh, back in the day they used to do this, but this is why they stopped doing it. Okay, but like they didn't do that in this, and it's just very weird to me then. And also, I did not like Chris Hemsworth's Dementis's chariot motorcycle thing. because I don't get how he steers it. Because he's like in a chariot and he's got 3 motorcycles and he's like, got the bar, but like, how do you steer that? Like, I don't get it and I don't like it. That really bugged me. Every time I saw him on that fucking thing, I'm like, but how is he really steering it?
It looked cool though.
It does. It looks cool as shit. But how is he steering it? How is he getting it to accelerate? How is he doing anything in that fucking thing? I don't know. It really bugged me. Dude, I spent an absurd amount of time just staring at that motorcycle chariot, just so much of the time. That thing goes on screen and I'm just trying to watch the mechanics of that fucking thing work to an absurd degree, to a detrimental degree. I am focusing on that fucking thing and the movie is happening and I'm just like, but how the fuck is the motorcycle chariot working?
Because he just had straps, right? Like
he just had some straps.
They weren't intricately tied to the motorcycles a certain way or anything like that.
And they were so limp too. Like if they were very taut, I could maybe get it, but like he's just so like holding them and they're so flimsy. And I'm just like, but there's no tension. How the fuck is he turning it? How the fuck is he accelerating? Because like motorcycles have the little fucking twisty things. How is he doing that? But also, if you're accelerating one, how do you accelerate all 3 at the same time?
Yeah, at the same time.
Inquiring minds must know. I don't know. It just really got to me. And I think that's why I was so drawn to it though, is it is so cool looking. It is such a statement piece. It is so like your eye is drawn to it. And I think that's why I was fixated. I don't know. But outside of that, like, those are like 2 very big criticisms for me. Outside of like, I don't like how then they just kind of brush off like 15 years to get to Fury Road at the end of the movie. Like, did you need to do like a montage thing of just like all this stuff happened and then a Fury Road? Like, you don't have to end the movie like that. Like, you don't need that scene. Like, oh, let's get the brides and like run. We didn't need that right then. Because to me, it brushes off all this other timeline of like her doing these runs and doing this stuff to get the trust of Immortum Joe and all this stuff. Like, all of these things, like, they're an integral part of her story. They just kind of brush off just so they can go, remember Fury Road at the end of the movie? I didn't appreciate that. It seemed just kind of very flimsy at the end. It felt just like, I'm about to bring up something very traumatizing for me. It felt like, just like at the end of Dark Knight Rises, when they just need Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character to be named Robin all of a sudden. Like, that's what it felt like to me. It's like, why? Why are we just throwing this fucking like tag bullshit at the end of the movie? Just to make it tie into something. It's just so people go, oh, I remember Fury Road. Or, oh yeah, Robin and Batman. Do we really need that? No. It's just some tacked on bullshit. And I'm tired of movies that are pretty good, just kind of, tacking on bullshit because they just think they have to. Your movie's better than that. This movie was better than that. This movie did not need to go, remember Fury Road at the end of the movie. Come on, get the fuck out of here with that shit. You're better than that. Really bugged me. I will say this. I do think that this is like the strongest opening of a Mad Max movie. I love the opening sequence of this movie. I thought that was fantastic. That whole scene of the mom chasing them down and like them sniping them and doing all that shit, and the little girl even killing some of them and all this shit. I really dug that. I thought that was super good. You know, and even right around to like her escaping and them running away, and then the way the mom dies. Like, I thought that that was super good. I thought that that was a very like smart way to open this movie. So I do want to give it that credit. I liked how they kind of showed Dementis as, you know, kind of like that weirdly successful bumbling leader. Like, it's obvious that his success is more luck than anything. That he just happens to have more charisma than anybody. Not that he's more skilled. He's actually very poor at being a leader. He gets just so many of his guys killed and not much added benefit of it. Like the attack on the Citadel. He just gets a lot of his guys killed. You know, and then he takes over. Yeah, he takes over Gastown. And he takes over Gastown. But what happens? He ends up running it into the ground almost. Like, you know, when they're doing that delivery later in the movie, and it's just a like anarchy, which is like crazy because the whole like world is anarchy. But this is like double anarchy. It's like anarchy squared in that little place. You know? Like, he has no control over anything that's going on over there. And the fact that anyone is able to get any gasoline is just mind-boggling. You know? But, you know, and I just like that. It kind of shows how sometimes just being charismatic is sometimes the most effective thing a leader can have if they just want to be a leader. I mean, I'm not trying to make any knocks on anybody that might have just been convicted of 34 felony count, or, you know, convicted on 34 crimes or anything. But like, you know, it's kind of a weird parallel. Detrimental to a lot of things, relatively ineffective in most other ways, but weirdly charismatic, and people loved it. I'm not saying it's an analogy or anything like that. I'm just saying it's kind of weird how that works out. But I will say this, I really loved what Chris Hemsworth did at the end of the movie with this character. And I think it's exactly what you were alluding to, Jastin. I think Heather ties into the same thing. I did think that was some really interesting work. I'm not going to go into what it was because I don't want to take that away from you, Jastin, because you were like, I want to talk about this. So I want you to have it. I just want to touch on the fact that was some really interesting character work with what he was doing at the end of the movie. And I was like, I could have used some more elements of this throughout the movie. And and he was fine. He was fine throughout the whole movie. Don't get me wrong. I just could have used more of that. Now, knowing that was a part of the character, I wish there was more of that. I don't know. I think that's all I'm going to go with, honestly, for right now. I might add some stuff here and there as you guys go. Jastin, what about you? What are some spoilery thoughts that you had?
Yeah, I agree that beginning, I liked that a lot too. I thought that beginning was super solid. And what it also did too was kind of painted a picture of why those women were so formidable. And they're not people that use brute strength to fight. You know what I mean? This isn't Mad Max. So Mad Max is somebody who drives and punches his way out of situations. But what Furiosa and, her society from the Green Place, yes, the Green Place, what they seem to be good at, they're excellent marksmen. They're strategic. They set traps for you. They're one step ahead of you. They snipe you from a distance. They're not trying to engage you in close range combat unless it's absolutely necessary. You know, they're quick, they're sneaky, they have stealth ability, you know, different things like that. So the mother showed a lot of traits that we would then see Furiosa use later. And I think that's what I appreciate a lot about the Furiosa character. Very resourceful, uses her brain a lot, you know, knows her strengths and weaknesses and uses them well, and typically is one step ahead of who she's dealing with. So I think all of that comes across not only in the scene with the mother, but later when you're seeing Furiosa take on these tasks. That's what I think really makes her cool, is how she fights. She fights different. She fights completely different from somebody like Mad Max, which is why I think they make such a good team, you know, in Fury Road. So you can see all of that in here. I definitely agree about the performance of Chris Hemsworth. One cool thing that they did here is that, you know, at the beginning of the movie, he kills Furiosa's mom and forces her to watch it and taste her tears and shit like that. So, you know, all of that was pretty, and all the while he's kind of doing it in his sort of charming Hemsworth way. But the thing, you know, his voice tone didn't change much. What was happening, you know, he still kind of has that charismatic way about him, but the actions that are happening and the things taking place are terrible. But he sort of played it like, you know, but he played it in such a way, so it kind of made him sadistic in that way. And what was also cool is that, so yeah, he kills her. So, you know, you could have the movie just spawned on that one event and her traumatized and angry and driven by that one event. But then they sort of like, we're going to up the ante. And then he's going to also kill her mentor. You know, he's also going to kill that person. So the two most important people in her life, he killed them. You know what I mean? He killed her mom and then killed probably the closest thing she had to a father. You know what I mean? In Jack. So I think that was a good wrinkle that they gave to this story. I thought the whole thing, I thought her whole motivation was just going to be spawned out after the mother, but then, you know, we got more stuff. And what I mean about maybe turn on the darkness a little bit more, the scene where Jack does die, that was pretty horrible. You know, he's hanging by this bike and then he sends the dogs to go eat him and everything like that. And they're just going around and around in a circle. And the camera shot was pretty cool with Hemsworth sitting there and you know, as it's happening and he's just kind of sitting there. But what I mean by maybe just a little more dark, I wish he was doing it in some sort of way. I mean, well, he is doing it. He's commanding it, but I don't know. Maybe if he was the one riding the bike, or if he was just right there, like, I don't know. I feel like I wanted to see him participate in it and like it more. You know, I wanted to see maybe a little bit more action from him in that scene. I wanted to see him go from like where he was to just that, I'm going to fucking kill this guy and enjoy it kind of thing. I mean, I can't say that he wasn't enjoying it, but you know, I don't know. I just wanted him to be more of a part of it. You know, I wanted him to be like right there doing the shit and her having to see that. I think that would have upped the ante a little bit, because we saw him there with her kind of pretend consoling and saying, you have to watch this whenever the mom was dying. But somebody else was up there doing commands and killing the mom. So I think right there, it was great to kill Jack. It was sad for her, and that was a horrible moment for our protagonist. But I think if he was participating more, I think that would have been the step up from how he killed the mom. But I feel like it was too similar. He's commanding people to do it while he's just in the vicinity doing it. So that's what I meant, I guess, by I wanted that to be a little more dark in that regard. But it's not to hate on the scene or anything. I did like the scene, though. You know, I like that close-up shot on him as the bike is going around and around, and you can see the dogs just in the distance chewing him up. But yeah, but as much as I like that, still I would have put that touch on it. Like I said, that it did with the world building, and you kind of understanding that these places, these towns are kind of separated by these different resources, and all these places harboring these resources. So there's a place that harbors gas. There's a place that harbors bullets. Immortan Joe had the water. So now you're starting to see, okay, this is how this is going to be. So I imagine when we get to this, how did Mad Max get on the mountain movie? You know, I imagine we're going to see even more places that harbor resources and maybe even meet some more characters or find out, or maybe Mad Max was staying at one of these places. You know, you feel like he's sort of starting to expand, and we're starting to understand exactly what this post-apocalyptic world is, or how it's being operated, or how how these people become these tyrants, et cetera, et cetera. You're starting to kind of see the methods to the madness. And then like the action set pieces were just really good. And I didn't think about that point you made, Sterling, about the flying apparatuses that they had. I was just, it was funny because at the time I was watching the scene going, damn, this is cool. But it never clicked that wasn't in the next one. So that was a good point that you made. Yeah, none of that shit's in the next movie. So that is unfortunate. That's a little unfortunate. But man, that chase and how they were, and how Jack was just an exceptional driver, man. So like in those scenes, man, when he's the hazards he's able to avoid, the way he was able to like keep that tanker on the road despite everything that was happening. You know, I just loved how they did the action sequences. And like Furiosa is just such a great marksman. Like it's crazy just seeing her pick off people. And it's weird because you never think that just sometimes just action sequences where somebody's just standing there shooting people can be a little boring, but she was so excellent at it. And they were great about how they did the camera work and the editing to show just how good of a shot she was. Not even needing time to perch, you know, moving so swiftly and being able to cap this person and then be out of sight in a blink of an eye. And then all of a sudden the person comes out, bam, they're just dead. You know, we're over at where Chris Hemsworth's hiding and he's like, hey, go check that out. The guy barely peeks out and then his head just explodes. Like they were just really good about showing how well she moves, how much she anticipates movement and stuff like that. Very cool scene when Hemsworth grabbed one of his men and they got shot. So then he could get a shot off on her and was able to kind of turn the tide in that battle. All of that stuff I just love. So yeah, he did, again, another incredible job with the action sequences and stuff like that. I just think the main difference though was in Fury Road, it just felt so constant. And this, it was required to sort of take breaks to explain and world build. And you had to explain her relationship with, you know, with Joe and that clan and all of that. So like, I get why it couldn't just like be just the action fest that Fury Road was, but those and a lot of those scenes were necessary. I wouldn't say any of those scenes are unnecessary, but yeah, like, but those road and those action scenes were so good. Those chase scenes were done so well. You just wanted to get back to the road whenever this took a break. You just wanted to be back there. You just wanted another sequence. And then whenever you got it, it was so satisfying. It was like, yeah. And then you have to wait on it again. So like, you know, it just didn't have the same feel, the same kind of tightness that Fury Road had, I think, for that reason. And then the last thing I'll say is, yeah, that scene at the end, because, you know, we've seen a lot of these movies where the protagonist finally gets the revenge or finally gets the vengeance and stuff like that. But I love the conversation that they had. And oddly enough, it sort of reminded me a little bit of Kill Bill Volume 2 when, you know, when she finally meets up with Bill and there's all this shit going on. There's this psychological conversation and there's this thing of who's going to get to the gun first. And then there's this thing of, but then there are these mixed emotions that, you know, Beatrix Kiddo had about Bill. And there was just this, that, to me, that is one of my favorite, like, final confrontations in a movie. Because there was a whole lot of shit going on in that Kill Bill scene. But in this, to me, it was similar. I love that conversation where how Dementus was like, killing me, even though you're going to do this is never going to get you what you think it will. You know, you're never going to feel better about what happened. This is never going to completely make right what's wrong with you. And then him even saying, I know what you're feeling. I know from personal experience, I've lost some people just like you that were important to me. So I know this feeling never goes away. I know that you can't, I know you think it will, but it won't. And I get what you're saying, Sterling. Like, if we had gotten some sense of that throughout the journey, or if maybe they had taken a page out of Monkey Man's book and there was this sort of first encounter where we got a little bit of that story, or we got a little bit more of Dementus, you know, maybe she captures Dementus for a bit, but he gets saved or something, or finds a way to escape her. And we find out a little bit more about that and what drives him and why he feels nothing for anyone, because he lost everybody that he feels for. You know, now, when you get to the end of it, the conversation is so good, you understand him a lot more and why he does some of the things he does. But you do feel like it came a little late. I feel like if we could have just had some of that earlier, and then juxtapose that with some of his actions and his thought process, I think it makes a lot of sense. So you could tell he was this charismatic man. Yeah, he was this leader, and yeah, he had amassed a lot of power and things like that. But on the inside, he was just a sad person trying to fulfill, you know, all of these voids with things, with power, with bullets, with gas, with control, you know, control over people, which was a big thing for him, was control. And you get the sense at the end, after hearing that's what the control was about, because he couldn't control what happened to the people that he cared about. So everything is now about controlling that and the lack of care for people. You know, I'm just putting that together now with that conversation. But that was great. And it was also great because he wasn't lying about that. You know that she may feel a little bit better about killing him, but yeah, you know that there's going to be a lack of fulfillment. And when you think about Fury Road, you see some of that in her and how she feels. And it's almost even sadder because when she's doing all of this to Dementus and she goes on this journey, she's doing it with the hope that she can get back home. And it almost makes what happens in Fury Road more devastating when she gets there and finds out that her home is gone. So it's like, so damn, man, this really adds to Fury Road in that way. But yeah, loved that final confrontation. I like that it wasn't just a gun battle or a hand-to-hand battle or anything like that. It was like a battle of sort of the mindsets of these characters. And I appreciated that. I super wasn't expecting that and really appreciated that at the end.
Heather, what about you?
Yeah, and I don't know, I feel like something interesting about Dementus as a character is the fact that he's going around, he's carrying that little teddy bear, which belonged to one of his kids or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I feel like that, it's almost like that was him, like that was the last little bit of humanity that he had, was just that as like his constant reminder of what happened and his constant reminder of the one thing that he actually seemed to care about ever. And it's interesting because you do see moments where it feels like he genuinely cares about Furiosa as a child, as like his child. Because he's like, yeah, no, this is my daughter and all this stuff, and like giving her the bear and all these things. But it's not actually Furiosa that he cares about. It's him just being like, I want to fill the void of the fact that I don't have my own child anymore. And I think that's a really, like, I appreciated that dynamic in there with him because, it's so easy to create this very unhinged person and this unhinged villain. And it's easy to do that when you don't have any element of what's something that would actually be like a thing that makes them more relatable or more human. And it's very subtle here because it doesn't need to be more than just a very subtle thing, but it just adds another layer of interesting complexity to who Dementus is. And I just really liked that. And I just like what was done with that compared to just everything else that he was doing. And the fact that even though, he has that little bit of heart there about his family, he still has no issues demanding other people destroy everybody else's families. It's a very weird, like, catch 22 type of thing. And so but I appreciate it because it makes him an interesting villain. And you're right. He's very much a bumbling leader. And I think that was a really kind of satisfying thing to see, though, because after we go back to him when Furiosa's older and it's out of control. Like the people following him, it's just out of control. They're not listening to him. They're doing whatever they want. And it's just not at all what he thought it was going to be, because he does have that charisma and that charm. And he was very much a cult leader at the beginning where people were just doing whatever he said. And he was just completely in control of them. And then that control was gone. And you don't even fully get to know why that is. But even there was a comment in the film about I forget the name of the group of people, the bike rider guys, and they were like, oh yeah, they separated from him. They're not a part of him anymore. So, and it's just like, you just see over the years how he just kind of lost it. He lost the trust of the people that were following him. And I don't really know if that's supposed to be like once he lost Furiosa, it was like everything went downhill after that, or if that was just him finally just reaping what he sowed, kind of, in a way. But either way, it was funny to see because, yeah, he was so unhinged that it was bound to happen, basically. So it was just kind of funny to see that. And I also really like the whole thing of, I mean, there was Dementis and his group, and then there was Immortan Joe and his group and his war boys. And it was this really odd thing of her choosing what she would consider the lesser of two evils in the sense, but more so just for her sake of what's my best chance of survival? What's my best chance of getting out of here and being able to get back home? And that was a really cool thing that I also appreciated, because you just see how, I guess, lost and unredeemable it seems like so many people in this wasteland world are. And so she's just literally doing what she has to do to survive and keep her promise to get back home. And it was just cool to see that journey of why she chose the path that she did when you see her in Fury Road, and what led up to all of that going down. So I just liked that it was like, there's two sides she could have taken in this. Neither one of them ideal, but you see why she chose what she did, because without Dementis being who she was with before, you're just like, why on earth would you ever decide to go with this guy? But then you see Dementis being who he is, and the fact that he's the one responsible for her mom's death, it just makes so much more sense why she fell into the crowd that she fell into, you know? So I do like how you do get the journey that explains, and like you said, it's a good compliment to Fury Road. I do think that was a really good way to describe that. So it really did a good job of just more lore of this world. And it's such a cool, interesting, and unique world. Yeah, post-apocalyptic to no end. And it's a really cool just way to show what humans are like and what they're doing to survive in this kind of environment. And again, it just really was cool to me, and kind of baffles me that, and I think his name is Lackey Hume. He played Immortan Joe, and he played, I think his name was Rizdale, the guy that, was essentially like trying to take credit for taking Furiosa. The guy that they like skinned his hair, he had like the really big hair. I just think that that's so cool that was the same guy, and he was really excellent in both roles, honestly. But I mean, aside from that, I think as far as acting goes, I do think that last scene between Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy was the best acting performance in the whole thing. But I think my favorite segment of the movie was when she's with Jack and they get trapped, and then, it's right before they get captured. That whole scene leading up where they're, trying to go on their route, and then he, gets trapped, and then he's trying to get her out of there, and then she goes back to save him. That whole thing was a really, really cool scene. I really loved that. And I feel like there was that moment right before they got there when he had her drive not the war rig, but the other car. And I'm guessing, was that because he was trying to give her a way to like get out, like give her a way to go off on her own if she wanted to take the opportunity?
Yes, that was solely to get her to give her the chance to escape like she wanted. Yeah. That's solely what that was.
Yeah. And I thought that was really cool, because I feel like it seemed like it was obvious, but I was like, maybe I'm reading that wrong, because she did not at all, like, she was confused by it. So I was like, it could have been that, or it could have just been like if at any point this part becomes dangerous, I don't want you and me in the same like vehicle. But no, it was definitely just for her to be able to peace out if she wanted to.
I think she was surprised by it because she did not know that was coming. Because he was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to do this or whatever. Like, we're going to do that. You're going to ride with me until it's safe or whatever, or until you've learned enough." That's solely what that was.
Yeah, and I just loved that moment too, because it just felt like from the very beginning of them being on the journey together, there was just this understood thing between them, even without words. And that was really cool. Like when he finds her, or she comes out of hiding on the war rig and she's helping him to not be killed. And then he's helping her to not be killed. And he's just kind of like, what is this? And then he's like, all right, well, you're keeping me alive. So whatever. And just from there, there's just a very understood relationship between them. And I thought that was really well done because, again, a lot of this movie is like saying a lot of things without saying much at all. That's very much the Furiosa way of what I could tell. So I think that you have to kind of nail that part for the way that these characters are written, because it's just so important that you understand what these really, especially in Furiosa's world of there's not a lot of people she trusts. There's not a lot of people she would consider on her side that she would want to kind of do a ride or die thing for. And he's one of them. And you have to be able to understand why that is. But she also just doesn't talk much. Neither of them really talk to each other beyond just the basics of what their job is. And I think that's just really well done writing and acting to make the characters where you get it without them having to say anything. So, and that's why even when that moment comes when she's, talking to Jack and saying like, you should come with me. And they have like a kind of sweet moment together. It's not surprising because you're like, you understand what they mean to each other at that point. So I appreciate that character development and the dynamic that they had with that. Yeah, I think aside from the few things that you guys have already kind of talked about, like, yeah, I just, also my only thing too is when we learn about how she loses her arm, I just feel like there was going to be so much more buildup for what happened there than what we got, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just like, that's such a big part of her character in Fury Road. And you're just like, oh, what happened here? And you see it happen and she has a very quick reaction to it, which probably means she went into shock when her arm just gets demolished when she's driving. And then she gets to the point where, like, when they're hanging her up so that she can watch basically Jack die, she just kind of cuts her own arm off to get out of there. Right. That's, I believe, what happened. So I just feel like that I kind of expected more out of what that was going to be, just because that's, everybody's like, oh, what happened there? But I guess it was fine though. And also to that scene where they're doing the bike riding and dragging Jack around. I think for me, that is the moment when I realized how dark Dementus was, because he's the one saying like, keep going. And they went until the sun went down. And he's just like, I'm only having them stop because I'm bored. And I feel like that was a pretty deranged and dark thing to do. And so I think that's the point when I kind of saw that dark side that you're talking about. But yeah, you're right. It's not like he was the one out there dragging, but it's just the power that he had for these guys to just do that. And for him to just on a whim be like, yeah, I'm bored now. So that's the only reason we're stopping. That's how you realize, like, he's just kind of evil, like he's just doing this for fun, like just to get some kind of thrill or whatever it is. So, but I do get what you mean. But I think that was why it didn't bother me quite as much, because that for me felt like that's when you're seeing just how actually dark the guy is going to go, but, yeah, I do think that obviously there were a few things. And again, I also expected that they were going to start the revenge path story like a lot earlier in the movie than they did. I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't show up for the first like hour of the movie. And that's fine because, we're getting the build up to that. And I will say excellent casting, because that little girl definitely looked exactly like Anya Taylor-Joy if she was younger. So I thought that was really good casting. And it was interesting to see, you know, what led up to all of this for her at the age we get her at in the movie. But I think I just was expecting something different from that because, you know, you just see the trailers for this and you see what this movie's about and you just think you're getting Anya Taylor-Joy for the majority of even the first act, you know, and you just you didn't. So yeah, and it was good, but it was just different than what I expected as far as when we pick up at the age she's at. So yeah, but again, it was a good movie. I would definitely, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to watching it again, especially in a theater, because it is that type of movie for sure.
No, I do agree though. The little girl, yeah, that was a great choice to cast as young Furiosa, because it was a very good transition between her and Anya as that went on, especially like considering like her face is covered for a big majority of that. So like it's a very subtle transition between the two, because it's like person with covered face to person with covered face.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I do also like that that opening scene was really great. And I loved that. It did kind of set that tone for you, because I mean, that mom just with no hesitation was like, cool, I'm going to get her back, and just doesn't stop or look back at all. And you just kind of see like, that's where she gets it from, you know, like this is how she was raised. And that's why she's so resilient and just so able to think quickly and just act quickly on whatever she's doing. So it really sets the tone of, you know, what happens in this movie beyond that. So I thought that was a really great way to show it to us.
I'm kind of tapped. You guys got any more thoughts about this?
I don't think so.
No, I think I'm good. I was trying to think of more, but I think we all rounded it out well.
All right. On that note, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. Check us out on the internet at www.cinemaslayers.com or Cinema Slayers podcast on Facebook. We are cinema_slayers on Instagram and Threads and Letterboxd. We are at Cinema Slayers Pod on TikTok and YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your friends, family, tell your family's friends. And most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers, because dear sweet mothers love
Anya Taylor-Joy?
No, Chris Hemsworth.
That too. Or, I mean, more specifically, Chris Hemsworth as a cult leader, because it's like the second movie he's been in where he's a cult leader.
That's kind of his default when he plays a bad guy.
Because he's too charming to be just a normal bad guy. He's too charismatic for that.
Shout out to Plug Migo and Mundo Cho for our theme songs and logos, respectively. Remember here at the Cinema Slayers podcast, we're pro slut, pro Sydney, and pro naked. You, yes, you cinefans, you are Knuff. And justice for Chris and Todd and stunt people.
Yes.
Can't forget those stunt people. And as I always in these TikToks, these YouTube videos, and this podcast, just remember, according to Jastin, Moon Knight is the Best Picture winner.
Somebody will listen to me.
So I wonder in the Mad Max movie of this, is there going to be a scene where he's standing there and you see Furiosa crawling in the desert as he drives off? You know, there's going to have to be a scene.
Yeah,
Drives by her in a truck.
If they do,
She's like,
if they do Mad Max week before Fury Road, yeah, there's going to be some scene where there's just going to be a woman standing on a cliff with a robot arm.
Yeah, got to have it. Got to pass by her while she's driving a truck. It's like, who's that? I don't know, but we have to look ahead and not address it. You know, something like that. Gotta have it.
Oh man, I kind of want to see that now. I just want to see that scene. I just want it's literally going to be the exact same scene as it was with Mad Max here. It's just going to be this gigantic 18-wheeler up on a cliff and a robot arm. That's it.
Mm-hmm. We'll go. That's her. Next scene.
I do think it would have been nice if there was some hint in actually Fury Road that, like, up in the garden there was a tree going out of a man. Like it was like an urban legend or something. Like if that was mentioned in Fury Road, like the legend of the tree and the man or whatever. And then you would have gotten that in this, like, it'd have been like, oh shit, it was her that did it.
Yeah, that would have been badass. That would have been pretty cool. A cool realization to make, but yeah, man, that would have been cool.
Oh man. Oh, George, if you just realized this, you could have had a really cool tie-in. Anyways, all right, I'm out.